Hey guys, this is Brooke Lewis Bellis. You're listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
They've conquered the big screen. Now, get ready for the spin-off sure to send chills down your spine. It's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Destin in Don't Go Out There, the series.
Welcome back, everybody, to DGOT, the series. We really appreciate y'all listening. We hope y'all have been enjoying these series reviews. I know we have. It's been a lot of fun. Just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on the website. All of our episodes and interviews, if you want to check those out. We've done some incredible interviews in the past. Go check them out there in a specific tab by themselves so you don't have to scroll through hundreds of episodes on Apple or Spotify, etc. We also have our store if you want to grab a shirt, a mouse pad, a hat, all that good stuff. We'd love to see your pictures, rep your favorite podcast. And Shan's Etsy page is also attached if you want to grab a tumbler. All of our social media links are on there as well. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Like us, subscribe us, follow us, all that good stuff. And the last thing I want to shout out on our website is our Patreon. We call it Blood Donors. We have the traditional monthly reoccurring kind. If you want to support us, help us pay the bills, as we say. Or if there's a movie you want us to review, that option is available as well. Just check out our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Also, if you haven't noticed, we've recently joined the Believe Network, so there's some ads on our program now. But if you want ad-free content, go check us out on Blood Donors. The ad-free episodes will be available there. We appreciate your support. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We are starting off a new series to Dustin and Brian's dismay. I know they're really disappointed we're not doing any more Bates Motel, but we're kicking it off with my pick this time. We're taking on Dahmer. This is a show that I've been excited to review, but I'm kind of nervous to review it as well, just because this is something like we've not reviewed yet. Like, yes, this is a TV show, a Netflix show, whatever you want to call it, but this is based on true events, and got to tread carefully, properly, because these are real victims, and I'm looking forward to diving into this. Just the show aspect, the filmmaking aspect, not necessarily the history and the true dark undertones of it. Brian, what'd you think?
All right, listen, I've got a weird relationship with true crime. I can listen to podcasts or whatever, and it doesn't really bother me. But something about watching true crime shows or documentaries about it, there's something to me about seeing it fully engulfing yourself into the story that it's not totally for me. Now, I've said this before, but I watch movies to escape reality. The real world to me is bad enough. Not that my life is bad, but the world we live in, I think, is truly an extension of Satan and is truly horrible. And so things like this usually don't have me like, oh, that's interesting, the mind of a killer, etc. Like, it makes me very angry almost. But still, that's just kind of like where I'm at mentally, I guess, if that makes sense. Now, with that said, this show wasn't what I expected. Like, after the first episode, I was pretty locked in. And I hope the show continues to surprise me and doesn't glorify the piece of shit. Like, I hope that that's the case. But so far, and I'm not watching ahead, it has high marks for me after the first two episodes. The first 1.5 episodes. I don't really care for the first half of the second one, but that's really it. I'm in so
far. Okay. Look, Nico kind of mentioned it. I think me and him are the true crime people on this show, as far as our what we intake as far as content. I think we're both fans of Murder in America, that podcast. I highly recommend checking them out as well, along with others. Too Close to Home, all that stuff. So that being said, I'm very familiar with the Dahmer case. His victims, the kill. All the stuff that came out about Dahmer. I've watched documentaries. I've watched the confession tapes. All that stuff. So I understand having to handle this with care. This was very controversial when it came out at the time. I remember wanting to check it out pretty immediately, though, just because I'm into true crime. I don't obsess over it. I'm not a sleuth trying to be online solving cases for people. That's not my cup of tea. I'll let other people handle that, but I was interested. And so I watched, me and my wife, I'd say we binged in about 2 days, really got our fill of Dahmer. We were like, well, that was fucking horrifying and disgusting. and then moved on. So revisiting it for the lens of this show is very different, right? Because when you're watching it as a true crime fan, it is kind of mortifying, to kind of see this stuff in this way, this graphically. When we're watching it to do a review of our show, for one, just tonally so different than the last few shows that we've done. It's just completely different vibes, completely different everything. And then, I understand having to handle this with care, but we are our show. We've been doing the show the exact same way with some, modifications over the last few years. And so I'm not going to not get a joke off here and there. That's just the way it's going to be, guys. Okay. So if you're not ready for dark humor, then maybe skip these episodes on Dahmer. If you're fine with that, but we're also going to handle it with care, talk about the stuff. So look, I really like the series. I think it's done really well. I think the cast is phenomenal. Evan Peters, Richard Jenkins is fucking great as Dahmer's dad. Niecy Nash in here as Glinda is great. Great casting all the way around. I'm excited that you picked it. I'm not sure how great the review talk's going to be until later in the series, but I thought it was really two good episodes to start. Sorry for the long rant. That's the most I have on both episodes, I promise.
Oh, first of all, don't punish us just because you want to make inappropriate jokes. Don't stop listening. Just fast forward through Mike. God. But
I guarantee I won't be the only one. Guarantee.
Stay tuned to find out.
Yeah.
So I hadn't watched this, and I don't know why, but I told Nico, I don't know where this perception came from that I don't like true crime. Like, I just don't like listening to podcasts, and I absolutely detest watching documentaries unless it's over something like professional wrestling. Then I can listen to podcasts and watch those documentaries, or Michael Jordan's The Last Dance. Everything else, I don't like documentaries, but I am intrigued by true crime. I like to read about serial killers. I've spent a decent amount of time reading about Jeffrey Dahmer over the years. And so I was looking forward to this. And after watching the first handful of episodes, I think it's really good. I think the acting, the cast is good. The capturing of the time and era was really good. I mean, really good. Not just like costume and set design, but like something about the way it feels. Like, it really feels like we're back in those times. Also, I really appreciate, as I know Nico does too, I appreciate that when we do have a time jump, they let us know what year we're in. We're not just watching this trying to figure out, okay, is this a flashback? Is this a jump forward? So that works well here because, for Nico, he just hates, nonlinear storytelling. But for me,
it's not true, but
it is. But for me, I just, it would get confusing seeing like teenage Dahmer versus 1991 Dahmer because they look pretty much the same actor. So I appreciate them letting us know, hey, we're in this year right now. But overall, I mean, this is night and day from Bates Motel as far as, that one, Bates Motel, they stretched out 50 episodes. And I'm like, how much can you really tell? Like, we're making up stuff, which I know that's all fiction anyway, but we're making up stuff that we've never known to be true just to fill space because we've got this many episodes we have to do. 10 episodes is perfect for this. We know the time frame that we're really focusing on, and then the flashbacks that we have, they're all impactful. They all have meaning. They all show us not why he became a monster, but the trauma that led to him becoming a monster. So I think it's really well done in that regard. They didn't try to stretch it too thin, and from what I've seen at least, and yeah, I like it.
I will say before we start, I agree with you. This show does a great job of tiptoeing the line of giving us reason as to, you said why. I think the better phrase would be how Dahmer became who he is instead of why, because, a lot of people, when this came out, and Nico kind of touched on it last week and I touched on it, it was not well thought of. I think everyone, praised Teep on how it was made and Evan Peters for his portrayal and stuff like that, but they were really upset because they felt like it was glorifying a killer.
Yeah.
And I don't see that through the series. And even looking ahead, because I've seen it already, I never got that vibe. They give backstory to who Jeffrey Dahmer is. Now, if you think that's glorifying, then I can't really argue with that. But I think the series does a good job just explaining, not excusing. And I really like that they do that.
I agree with that, but I'll take it a step further. I don't think it's necessarily glorifying him, but I think it is kind of building in some sympathy. It's trying to make the audience sympathize with Jeffrey a little bit, because he did have a crappy home life and he was different. Being gay at a time when it wasn't okay to be gay. Yep. His dad constantly asked him about girls when he's clearly not into girls. I think that it does kind of try to build in some sympathy for him, when reality is, no matter what happens to you in life, you can't justify killing other people.
No.
Well, I mean, that's only sympathy, though, if you're sympathetic to that. You could explain away, too, that they are just, like, literally giving facts, which I hope that's factual. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know the story. I hope that's factual.
It's factual.
But, I'm
not talking about just the gay stuff, though. I'm talking about, like...
no, I'm in his childhood. That's what I wasn't even talking about the gay stuff. Okay. That's what I'm...
Because, being the outcast at school and, his parents... Neither one of them really looked that interested in having him as a son. His mom, clearly,
super shitty,
and his dad, the only time they could bond was when they're cutting up their animals. Like that, for anybody, if you have a heart, you're like, dang, I do feel bad for him in those regards.
Sure,
but that doesn't justify what he did.
No, absolutely. And like I said in my opening, like if this show does glorify him in a way, I will fucking hate it, and I know I will. But from what I've seen. And from what little that I know about the case, I don't see that either so far.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't even take the kid stuff as a sympathy, kind of making him feel sympathetic towards it. I just thought, like, this is a facts, and here they are.
Yeah.
And I don't have the fun fact or trivia saved. It's on there on IMDb, but Ryan Murphy made it a point that he wasn't trying to make Dahmer sympathetic. He was just telling the Dahmer story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll read it once we get to the fun facts if I can find it again. But they do take some liberties, because like Glenda Cleveland isn't his actual neighbor. There are some things that they freestyled on, but it's fair. It's pretty accurate. Y'all ready to jump into the scene by scene?
And I think the sympathy, honestly, just telling the story is incidental, because his life sucked. That's not, there's nothing we can do about that as humans but to have that emotion for a child that's going through shitty things. He just ended up being one of the worst pieces of shit of all time after the fact. So I think they get that point across later. If you're feeling sympathetic through the first two, Jeffrey Dahmer has a major heel turn later in the series. I promise.
All right, guys. It starts pretty immediately.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I agree. I'm just saying, if you're feeling sympathetic, dude, there are people that name themselves Columbiners because they're in love with the two people that shot up the school. People are weird, so just keep that in mind when I say that. Yeah, people wrote Dahmer in prison, man.
We're chasing after Richard Ramirez.
Yeah.
Well, this show, I do like that it starts right at the very end of Dahmer's story. This is his last victim, and then it goes into the flashbacks. I like that too. That's Evan effective. Peters is fantastic. This first episode gets you very invested into this story. I think it's very well done. But let's jump into the scene by scene. Episode starts in Milwaukee, 1991. News reports on police brutality on a black man during a traffic violation. Glenda watches on in disgust, but she collects herself, looking at herself in the mirror, but catches a whiff of a bad smell from her neighbor's apartment, the infamous Jeffrey Dahmer. He washes a bloody blade and freshens up. He downs a Budweiser and leaves his apartment, fighting with his stubborn door. Glenda confronts him regarding the smell. He blames it on rotten meat, but she calls him out on it. He now says it's his tropical fish that died from ick, a fungus. He walks towards her, and she grows uncomfortable. He says he'll get it cleaned up this weekend and leaves. Jeff makes it to the club and heads to the bar. He asks to buy the two men a drink, and he's called a real player after ordering PBRs. Tracy Edwards joins them, saying Jeff brought him a drink before as well. They thank him for the beer, and he introduces himself. Tracy asks if he's going to make a move or walk away again. Tonight, I'm a man of action, he says. He's out on the dance floor, and the men are watching on laughing. They ask him about his photography, and he offers $50 if they want to pose. Just artsy stuff, nothing weird. Tracy agrees to join after Jeff says he has nice facial structure. Jeff leaves with Tracy, and they make it back to his apartment. He admits to him that he lied to the others at the bar about his address so they wouldn't be bothered. Tracy is sketched out upon entering and immediately notices the smell and mess. Jeff blames it on rotten meat again and locks the door. He refuses to open a window and pours a Budweiser for the two and spikes Tracy's drink. Brian, that's the opening set of scenes. What'd you think?
All right, so we open up with a great shot from director Carl Franklin, Dustin's uncle, I believe, who directed the first 2 episodes here. He actually did 4 episodes of another fantastic show, but again, I'm not sure if it's something we need to review on this show just because of how slow it is, but Mindhunter. But I love the way the shot rotates from the TV around Glenda's face here and the way that she's shot through the mirror as well as, when we approach through the vent. I thought that's just fantastic. And I also wrote down Budweiser. Like, no wonder he's a serial killer. Who drinks that shit? And I'm just kidding because I know Dustin does, so that's why I said that.
Well, I don't drink anymore, but that was my favorite beer. Son of a gun.
Son of a gun. I also thought it was a standout transition from Dahmer shutting his door to us being in the hallway with him on the other side. I thought that was a really smart cut there from Carl. And I can already tell, honestly, that the production quality on this show is top freaking notch. And you mentioned it, Dustin, in your open. I love this being a period piece set in, 91 for the most part here, at least when we start. Bates Motel writers would have put it at 2024. But no, I mean, actually, instead, we just set something in the 2000s that leads up to like something in 1960 or 1991. But yeah, anyway, we're doing Dahmer here. Sorry. I love how Dahmer is in. I love how he's in here drinking some liquor and then he's buying people PBRs and gets called out on it. I thought that was funny. And I also thought, this is the last thing, I also thought it was a standout and a freaking fantastic use of sound design and the shot when Dahmer's like looking in the mirror at the bar after Tracy says he's down for $50. I mean, he kind of sounded like Tyrone on Next Friday, like, I'll suck you a dick for $20. But how the sound goes in and out there as he's looking in the mirror, and then when they get back in the building and it's all blurry, I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, so by the way, I like this Glinda character a lot that's portrayed by Niecy Nash, who we kind of get a quick glimpse of here in the open. And, like Nico mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, no, not his neighbor in real life, but an amalgamation of different people in that building, kind of, sort of, right?
Glenda Cleveland lived in that apartment
Right.
building, but it was across from him. It wasn't
That's
his
right.
next door neighbor.
That's right. Okay. We're in this club scene and they do a good job, and and Dustin touched on it, and I definitely was going to capturing the time. I mean, this really feels like we're in this club with them. And I cracked up at the line, there ain't a whole lot of white queens. I thought that was funny. I cannot imagine the 80s being a safe place for not only a gay man, but a gay black man. That had to be just not a great time. It would be really, really difficult to navigate those waters. And then you throw this fucking murderous asshole into the mix, and it's a bad combo suit, man. I will say I'm a better dancer than Jeffrey Dahmer if this is the kind of moves he had. Just throwing that out there. So fuck him, because I can get down. This guy out here basically doing the stiff robot on the dance floor. Can't be doing that. Man, this poor guy, his, spoiler, doesn't end up being one of his victims. Not in this way, or not by death anyway. But they show just that doom, right? He's fucked. He should have followed his gut from the start, and I think he does a great job portraying hesitancy from the beginning. As soon as he opens that door and catches a whiff of that stench of his apartment, I think it's done really, really well to portray, shit, what the fuck have I got myself into? They also show a satanic book on the counter there. So anyway, bad combo, bad start for my man here. But again, really hooks you in automatically right away.
Yeah, immediately I can tell they did a great job with the set and costume design. Like I said earlier, it's not just that. Like, this really feels appropriate for 1991. It's pretty chilling how quiet and eerie everything is when we see Jeffrey cleaning blood off his electric knife in his arms. And then his interaction with his neighbor. Like, he is just a creepy guy. You know how sometimes when people commit heinous crimes, everyone's shocked? Buddy, the signs were there all along for this guy. Also, shout out to Niecy Nash, who played the neighbor there. I did not recognize her at first. She's fantastic in everything I've seen her in, and just like in interviews and stuff. She is awesome. And then, I don't know, man. If I walked into an apartment and it smelled that bad, I'd leave immediately. I don't want to victim blame, but come on, you got to get out of there. There's a goof when Jeffrey is in the kitchen preparing the drinks there. On the cabinet above the sink, there's a 3M command hook. But 3M didn't release command products till 1996, so unless Jeffrey was a time traveler, that's a goof. It's a decent enough open. I'm interested from the jump because I'm familiar with the story, and I just want to see where it goes.
Absolutely. Jeff gives Tracy the drink and he says cheers, but Tracy asks, what's that floating in the cup? He says it's dish soap and he takes a drink. Tracy says he wants to leave, but Jeff stops him asking, why does everybody want to leave me? Jeff says he wants to show him around before turning the AC on and shows him his fish tank. Jeff likes watching fish fight and he slaps a handcuff on Tracy's wrist. The two squabble and Tracy yells for help. Jeff slams him to the ground, threatening he will do things he doesn't want to. He grabs a knife and threatens to kill him. Glenda overhears some of the conversation as Jeff tells him to calm down. He orders Tracy into the bedroom with the air conditioner and has him sit on the bed. Jeff turns the TV on and pops in a video telling him what's on the agenda for the night. Tracy asks about the big blue drum in the corner to no answer. He tries to run off but is seized by Dahmer, who asks him to stop trying to leave. Tracy is terrified and seeing the large blood stain on the mattress. Tracy tries a new plan and begins flirting with Jeff. He asks to go into the other room and try some things. Jeff stands up and grabs a knife, asking if he's high yet. He says yes and is asked what he wants to show him. Jeff sets the knife down and Tracy begins to dance and strip. He tells Jeff to go to get the camera, who is hesitant, thinking Tracy is going to attempt to run off. He tries to run, but Jeff is back fast as hell. He takes some pictures and walks towards Tracy. Jeff tells him that's enough and wants to watch a movie. Tracy says, what about the news? And Jeff holds the knife to him. Brian, that's the next set of scenes. What'd you think?
At the start of this, I said, how are you going to still drink even a sip of that beer after you see something floating in it? And he tells you it's dish soap. Motherfucker, even if it is dish soap, what you doing, Tracy? Put in reverse, Tracy. Anyway, and I'm sorry, I laughed. I laughed at this. When he puts his handcuffs on Tracy, and so obviously Tracy backs up and goes, what the fuck? And Dahmer's response is, what? Like, what you mean, what? Like, I don't know. Sorry, I laughed at that. Also, Exorcist 3 is far superior to Exorcist 2. Like, it's not even close. So I hope we all agree on that, except if I remember correctly, Exorcist 2, Dustin loves. Anyway, honestly, though, not a great set of scenes here to me. It was tense, sure, but 12 minutes and not really a whole lot happened here. Although I know the real Tracy Edwards, from what I read, took 4 hours to escape. So maybe I should just shut up. But that's all I have.
I will say, hey, I did not do my investigative work here, so sorry. Were people like aware of being roofied and drugged back then in drinks? Like, I know, he asked, what's in this.
Brown was on the dating scene then. He would know.
Oh, no. Hey, we need a little bit of humor here, man. We got to have a little bit.
I wasn't at all.
You sure about that? Anyway, but I did have that thought. I'm like, I wonder if part of the reason he was able to get away with this for so long is because no one thought anything of that at that time. Maybe it wasn't as prevalent. Obviously, news travels a lot slower, even in the 80s, because all you really had was a couple channels, blah, blah, blah. Like, maybe there is something to that. Go ahead.
No, Mike, that's a good point. And I'm not 100% learned on the drugging or, spiking drinks either. But, me and you listen to a lot of true crime, like you mentioned. And in the next episode, or it might be the third one, I can't remember, when he picks up the next victim or his first victim hitchhiking, that's another thing that a lot of serial killers did back in the day was hitchhiking because people were too trusting. So perhaps people were too trusting taking drinks as well. I think that was a good point.
I think people were too trusting in general, Nico, because this man went home with them and then Tracy goes inside the room, even though it smells like fucking dead ass. Like, we know, literally. I think our alarm bells current day would go off a lot quicker and it's because we don't have that trust, right? And I'm not victim blaming. I'm just saying it's making sense why he was able to get away with this for as long as he did. Because I guarantee you, as we come to find out, it's not the first person that walks in and notices the smell and the first person that stays after they notice that smell. And so I think the roofing of the drink, sorry for long discussion here, but I think it's fair. Like, I think, was he even worried about his drink being spiked? Brian Bruss, brings up a great point that I said, I'm not drinking dish soap anyway, man. I got to tell a short, funny story. One time, me and Cousin Vinny, listener of the show, shout out to Cousin Vinny and Cousin Taylor there, were at our family's fish camp at night, staying the night one time, and our drunk uncle came in, and we had a big pot of spaghetti for dinner that night, and somebody already put the pot in the sink and put a bunch of soap in that shit, and he was fucked up, and he thought he saw a lot of spaghetti at the bottom of that pot and was eating that shit, and all of a sudden stops dead sentence and goes, spaghetti tastes funny. Is something wrong with the spaghetti, you guys? And we're like, yeah, somebody poured a whole bunch of fucking dish soap in there, man. So anyway, soapy spaghetti, soapy drink. What's the difference?
So, two things. Number one, talking about drinking dish soap just reminded me of the night before your wedding. I went down to the local liquor store there in South Carolina, and I bought all the shot glasses they had and brought them back, and we were doing shots of supplements with it. And buddy, there was about 2 inches of dust in those shot glasses because that liquor store was disgusting and old. And yeah, so we all drank God knows whose dust. But anyway, also while you were talking about, roofies and whatnot, I'm probably flagged for this, but I did ask ChatGPT while you were saying that.
Yeah.
Maybe
you sounded like Jerry Seinfeld when you asked too. You're like, Hypno, what's the deal?
Yeah, I sent a screenshot to the chat, but maybe it's the way that I phrased it is the reason I'm flagged. But I said, when did roofies become a big deal? But anyway, roofies, like, it was in the 90s when media coverage and law enforcement began to highlight the case of Rohypnol. And then in 96, it was banned for medical use. So there's no exact date on when people were aware, but it was the 90s. So that's a good point.
Okay.
But
see, there we go.
Yeah.
I'm glad I brought that up then. Sorry about the soapy spaghetti.
And if I'm flagged for that, if the authorities show up at my door asking why I'm asking ChatGPT about roofies, I'm sorry. It's for the show. Anyway.
In the words of Doug, Black Doug, rooflin. It's because you...
I don't know why they call it roofies. Every time I take them, I end up on the floor. Should call them flories.
Guys, we got to have some dark humor, man. We have no choice. I'm sorry.
It's
a dark topic.
That's from The Hangover.
It's great. But it's fantastic.
Anyway, is it my turn for...
No, it's not.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not. Sorry.
Sorry.
Watching these two people stand next to each other, how did somebody not beat Jeffrey Dahmer's ass before this, man? It's not like Jeffrey Dahmer is Arnold Schwarzenegger or anything. I feel like somebody could have beat his ass. But again, too trusting, different time period. Totally get it. That's not like, I'm sure was not super prevalent in the gay community at the time. So vulnerable group of people, I get it.
I don't know, man.
I hate what?
I don't know about people beating him up like he liked to lift weights. And go back to the house and lift some weights.
So, I don't know, man. He's not very big. I could take him. I'm hardcore. Come on. That's a Tommy Dreamer reference, man. Come on. Stop. All right. Let me get through my notes. Look, I hate that back then no one would listen to Glenda, right? And it's basically because the area that she lived in, and let's be honest here, because she's a black woman. It's fucking bullshit. How could anyone listen to what this woman says and ignore the smell coming out of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment? That never makes any sense to me. This series does a great job really highlighting incompetent police work. Okay, like, I am so serious. It doesn't even have commentary about the police in general. Just the ones that were warned time and time and time again about Jeffrey Dahmer did a piss poor job there in the Milwaukee area. So fuck them. They are partly responsible for what happened here. Look, once I saw the fucking blood on the bed, I got to find a way to get out of here, man. The look of horror on his face is really well done. I like his tactic here, though, using this seduction method. The problem is that's not what Jeffrey Dahmer wants. Like he almost doesn't want someone to want him that way, even though he pretends that he does. We'll find out later in the series about that as well. But him acting very all of a sudden into it definitely made Jeffrey Dahmer very suspicious. Look, I'm not gonna lie. You invite me over to your house. It stinks. You've given me poison at this point. The drink tasted like shit. I'm scared to death. You put a knife to my throat, and then you're gonna make me watch a fucking Exorcist movie, man? Fuck you. This couldn't get any worse of a night. Throw on the goddamn Exorcist. That movie sucks. So is Exorcist 3. I don't care what you say. Look, hey, it's better than Exorcist 2, but most things are. Look, this guy, he does a good job portraying fear, immediately engaging. It sucks me in because, I've only seen this one time through. I kind of forget that he ends up being, spoiler, the one that gets away here. And last thing, Evan Peters is great in this set of scenes. His straight man, as far as the acting goes, his calm demeanor. Even when he gets angry, he doesn't totally go off the wall batshit. I think is really well done. Just complete opposite of how the other ones played. So again, you can almost feel, unfortunately, like you're in the room with them.
Jeff said, "Why does everyone want to leave me? Pal, do some self-reflecting. It's abundantly clear." I had the Leo from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood moment pointing at the TV when Jeffrey turned on the TV in his bedroom. I remember those memes. That was a big deal a couple years ago. If I was Tracy, well, first off, I wouldn't have been in this situation. I'm just not. I wouldn't have been in the place where he got picked up. But as soon as I saw the blood on the mattress, I'd be fighting my way out of there. Like, I may die, but it looks like I'm going to die anyway. So let's jumpstart it. Let's go. It's a bit slow-moving set of scenes here from a note-taking perspective, but the tension is high, and I'm still very invested.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, you're only basically with two people the whole show, but it's like this is all real and it's tense, and like I'm super invested into it. But anywho, Tubular Bells plays, and Tracy sits nervously beside Jeff. He says he doesn't like horror movies, but Jeff asks, "What's so scary?" Death is just a part of life. The two lock eyes, and Jeff asks, "Why is he so nervous? You afraid of me or the movie? Am I weird?" Tracy says no, with tears running down his face. Jeff says it's The Exorcist 3. He watches it every day and skips to the best part. "Can I listen to your heartbeat?" Jeff leans in and puts his head on Tracy's chest. The two lie back, and Jeff drops a bombshell. "I want to hear your heart because I'm going to eat it." Tracy rubs his fingers through his hair until he pokes him in his eye. The two fight, and Tracy makes a run for it, hitting him with a lamp. He struggles with the door, and Jeff grabs him. Another struggle ensues, and Tracy gets loose, running away, yelling for help. "He tried to kill me." Glenda investigates the hall, seeing Jeff, and goes back inside. Tracy is running down the street, screaming for help. Jeff lights up a cigarette as Tracy runs into some cops in an alley. The cops have Tracy calm down, and he goes to his knees, saying he was almost killed. Tracy escorts the police to Jeff's apartment and knocks on the door. Jeff opens up and says he handcuffed him, but it was fun and games, playing cops and robbers, but Tracy denies this. They ask if he has the key to the cuffs, and he says yes. They ask to enter the apartment, and Jeff hesitantly agrees. Tracy declines going back in, and the cops ask about the smell. Officer Mueller finds the key, as well as several photos of posed dead men who have been mutilated. Jeff attempts to run, but is seized and arrested. Tracy cries, saying, "I hope you die." Cops fill the apartment, and Jeff is escorted out as Glenda accuses them of doing nothing. Brian, that's the next set of scenes. What do you think? And the next is the ending.
Look, Tubular Bells is top 3 or 4 horror movie themes ever. And, since I just played at the beginning here, it's allowed to bring that up. But anyway, if this wasn't real life, I would say the same thing that I think Mike touched on or somebody touched on earlier. I would ask why Tracy didn't just try to beat his ass right here on the bed when he says that he's going to eat his heart. Because both of your hands aren't cuffed. And this guy is, like you said, not some huge lumbering guy. But, again, everybody handles fear differently. So, whatever. I'm glad he finally at least tries, but he could have killed this guy. He could have killed Dahmer after you knocked him on the ground twice. Anyway, I got to say, the set of scenes for me threw me for a loop. Not really knowing much about the Dahmer timeline per se. It was interesting for me to learn that we are flipping that usual true crime formula and, like you mentioned, not starting with the first murder, like we're starting at the end. And also, if this is the end and he's murdered countless times before or whatever, he fucking sucks at it. Like, he's terrible at it. I'll just throw that out there, and I think I'll go back on that in the next episode. But And I know he didn't just say to the police, I'll find the key. There's a bunch of gay stuff back there. Like what? Like what? Because and I was like, all right, well, now I'm interested to see how this stupid motherfucker got away with killing people for as long as he did, and it touches on that a little bit more in the next episode. But of course, these dumbass police officers I mean, there aren't any better. They smell rotting flesh. You know, every officer knows what that smells like. Is this realistic? I don't know because they also had to have seen blood dripping off a drill because it showed it. It showed it like that they looked at it, and then a mattress with that gigantic blood stain on it. And I don't understand how they didn't pull their gun out right then. You know, I don't. It was just unreal to me. The whole thing's unreal to me how inept the police officers have been.
Look, I love how someone, again, knowing the case, I love how we get to see someone finally outsmart and outwork this asshole. I mean, this is just finally someone gets away in the true sense of it, and lives to tell about it. Finally, I feel true visceral anger with this scene because it takes them a long time to even believe this guy. They made this guy in the middle of the street who's crying, clearly something's wrong, get on his hands and knees and explain himself like they were going to haul him off. I don't understand. Like, clearly these cops are, oh God, they just, look, man, these cops in this particular show just infuriate me throughout the whole thing. Again, I will say, and I'm talking about real life Dahmer, and this is a pretty accurate portrayal of how he was caught, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I feel like he wanted to get caught at this point. This is one of the ones that he brings home that I feel like he's very lazy with. It's like he doesn't go to the same extreme measures. And when he realizes I'm probably going to get caught, he just kind of throws his hands up a little bit. He didn't even really fight to keep Tracy in the apartment that hard when he got out. So I found that interesting. Almost like, all right, man, the jig's up. I love that. Excuse me. I love that they give these Glenda lines here just about how much she called the police. He's on his way out. They've arrested him, and she's letting the audience and them know, I've called you 1,000 times. Shit, man. Like, how did the rotting flesh, and we see a scene in the next episode, how did that smell not trigger something? Like Brian mentioned, cops know what rotting corpse smells like, man. Like, they've all walked in at least once, probably, on a dead body that stinks. I can't imagine them. And I know he tore them apart and bleached some of the bone. Like, I know all that, but he had rotting flesh in there. They know what that smells like. Just so infuriating. Last thing, very Titanic of them here, and a lot of movies do it. It's just where my brain goes. Forgive me. Very Titanic of them here to show the ending that you already know is coming first, right? So, because you could turn on Dahmer and be like, I know how this goes. I don't need to watch this. Or you could hit them with the ending early, let them know, explain how it happens, and then go back and figure out how we got here. And I do like that they use that for this. I normally, it's actually funny that Nico gets the slander for not liking nonlinear storytelling when it's really me. I'm the guy that doesn't typically like nonlinear storytelling, but I do like it in this show. I think they do a great job because flashbacks make sense and they tell us where we are in the year and what time period in Dahmer's life we are when we get there.
I think you're absolutely right there because if they start in the beginning and just show it in a linear way, with us knowing what really happened with Dahmer, then we're going to lose interest. We're like, just get to it already. I know, but the way they do it's very effective. When he asked, "Are you scared of the movie or scared of me?" That's a very valid question because I don't like possession stuff, but The Exorcist 3 seems like Sesame Street compared to this maniac. Then he finally makes his move and tries to escape. Started out shaky, not gonna lie, until he smashed a lamp upside his head. And then that darn lock gave him fits. I'm glad he got away, though. In real life, like you said, Brian, it took Tracy Edwards 4 hours to escape. That had to be terrifying. Like, I could not imagine, especially once the world learned who Jeffrey Dahmer really was. Like, imagine Tracy Edwards a week later hearing everything that he did. Like, that had to be traumatizing. Then just the lack of concern from Jeffrey was insane. A victim escaped and he just sits on the couch unbothered. He had to know that the cops would be coming. Also insane that if the cop didn't find the pictures, they were just going to leave. As if the bloodstained mattress wasn't probable cause enough. Like, that is wild to me. I like the score in this set of scenes a lot, and the sound design when he was being let out in cuffs. I think that was really good, and I'm ready for the end.
But like you were talking about, Dustin, before I read the last set, with it starting with this, like Evan Peters is the star of the show. You have to start with him. I feel like you can't start with little kid Dahmer and all that. You gotta get your audience hooked. I think.
Well, even if they just show us like him killing someone as an adult and then flashing back, I don't think it would have been as effective. Like us showing us he got busted in this first episode, I think it sets them up for success because then we're like, okay, we know what happened. How did we get here?
Yep, I agree 100%. All right, here's the ending. The phone rings at Lionel Dahmer's house, who tells his wife Sherry is Jeff. He drives to the precinct and sits with detectives Murphy and Kennedy. They confirm Jeff is alive, and he says Jeff was always a weird boy, but a good boy. He details the divorce being tough on Jeff and apologizes to them. He wonders if there's brain damage from a hernia operation and the anesthesia used. Detectives tell Lionel of all the horrific things they found in his apartment. Multiple murders, human head in the refrigerator, hearts, male genitals in the freezer, Polaroids documenting it all, 57-gallon vat full of acid with 3 torsos, just to name some of the horrific sights. Also, based on leftover debris on cooking utensils, we believe he ate some of his victims. The detectives leave to allow Lionel a moment to collect himself. Lionel breaks down in tears, processing everything he's heard. Glenda awakes and with the news on detailing the incident. Knock at the door and she sees a crowd of people outside. An officer tells her she must leave the premises. The building is a crime scene and there's toxic chemicals that could be a hazard. She asks how many bodies they found as the episode ends. Brian, that's the ending. What'd you think?
I said, Richard fucking Jenkins. Man, I knew it as soon as I heard his voice answer the phone. Look, this poor guy, he has Dale Doback as a son, then marries a woman from Hill Valley, 1885, who has Brennan Huff as a son, who ruined your retirement plans. And then he goes off and marry a girl who had a crush on in the 80s, but turns out to have a serial killer as a kid. Jesus Christ, man, this guy cannot win at life.
Well,
Stop having kids, Richard Jenkins.
And how crazy is it that neither one of his sons or both of his sons have an affinity for power tools?
Yeah. I wonder how many people were listening to that just absolutely lost. I would like to know that. But that sound design build up to when he walks into the police station, I thought was phenomenal. Like, fantastic work there from, I'm assuming, Carl Franklin and composers Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. And can I ask a question here, though? Like, while being interrogated by the police, they tell Lionel that Jeff has been arrested. And he's like, what? Arrested? Like, what did you tell him to get him down there in the middle of the night if it wasn't your son has been arrested? Like, maybe some people are built different, but if you called me and just said you had a murder investigation, come on down, let me talk to you, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there when I fucking wake up. That's crazy. But anyway, I'm pretty locked into this so far. It's not what I was expecting. I thought it was fantastic fucking acting from Jenkins here. Being a father, I cannot literally imagine. I mean, okay, so some insight into my personal life here a bit. My teenage son and my 5-year-old daughter were out on the trampoline, and I was in the house and just looked outside, and I stopped and I looked at them and I told my wife, I said, you see that moment in time right there, we created that. Like, we created that moment in time for them. Without us, this moment doesn't exist. And so, as a father, you take responsibility for your kids and their actions. So I cannot imagine being in this position that he's in right now. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So the star of this set of scenes is Richard Jenkins, man. I just think he's fucking great here as Lionel Dahmer. Man, you kind of touched on it a lot there, Brian, and you have a more personal connection than I do to that. But I cannot imagine being told this. It's, again, to get him out of bed, it's my understanding, and they kind of touch on it, that they do tell him that he murdered someone. They just don't give him any details. Like, they say, hey, we've arrested Jeff. We've got him in here for murder, because Lionel kind of likes to cut the pleasantries and say, tell me about this guy that you think he murdered, or, something along those lines. And then they go into the really bad details, word for word, exactly what they found at Jeffrey's apartment. And here's the thing. I think Jenkins does a great job portraying this in this moment. There's a little bit of sadness. There's a little bit of anger. And then there's a little bit, as you see in a lot of shows, when a child or a kid of yours is accused of doing something terrible, there's almost this pushback that's like, no, not my kid. Could not have been him. Sweetest boy. There's this look that Jenkins gives as Lionel where he knows deep down that these guys are telling the absolute fucking truth about what Jeffrey Dahmer has done. And it is crushing, gut wrenching in that moment when the cops walk out and Jenkins lets out this little cry. It's nothing major. He's not sobbing, but just this little visceral reaction. I think he's fantastic here, man. You know, the fact that Jenkins can do these roles and then also be the fucking asshole dad from Step Brothers is great to me. He's also in Cabin in the Woods as well, a lot of other stuff. But again, I think he does a great job just portraying the mixed emotions that you have there. Look, I would be fucking pissed. Last thing, if I had to evacuate for something that had nothing to do with me that I tried to put a stop to a long fucking time ago. Cops, do your fucking job. Take people seriously, when, especially with the smell. I can't get over the smell. The smell is going to be a big thing for me. Like, how do you avoid dying corpse, flesh, rotten flesh? I don't understand. But again, I'm hooked. I'm all the way hooked again. I haven't seen it in a while, and I'm all the way back in.
You like to
Did
eat
you say
pork chops.
did you say the asshole dad from Step Brothers? Like, have you seen that? You call
He is
he's
an
the
asshole in that movie. He is an
Are you
asshole.
kidding me? Are
In
you
the context
kidding
of the story? In the context of the story, the way it's portrayed. He's
I
a
don't
dick.
think so. He's got to put.
I do.
He's got to stop being a dinosaur. You can't be a dinosaur. Grow up.
They're oh
Brian,
wow. All right.
I'm not talking about from our logical sense of brain. You're supposed to release that and let it go and have fun with the two brothers. Man, you guys, you know what? That's the real problem. You guys don't know how to dissect movies, all right? I know. All right? Everything's got to be all everything's got to be all literal for you guys. Got to be so real all the time. Just escape. Enjoy it. Golly.
You're talking to the two guys who like Marvel movies. We know how to escape.
Yeah, and
The
that
guy
makes
who
you guys
doesn't like
hypocrites.
any
Go on.
movies.
Well, you're a hypocrite.
I do like movies, just not that kind of bullshit. Lame as fuck.
Bro said
That was built
release.
up frustration from last 5 weeks.
Yeah, it was.
Mike just told us to release our inhibitions, feel the rain on our skin.
One character stepped to the left instead of the right. Not real enough. Got to mark it down a point, fuckers.
Excuse me for having standards. Anyway, shout out to Richard Jenkins, like you guys said. Man, he's a great actor. He's good in literally everything. Him saying Jeffrey was a strange boy. Look, that's the least shocking thing I've heard in a long time. Telling me that grass is green would be more shocking to me. And then at the police station there, that had to be just an earth-shattering conversation for Lionel. Imagine hearing your son is a murderer, and then hearing what all was in that apartment, and he was a cannibal. Like, that's just heartbreaking and gut-wrenching stuff. I couldn't imagine being a dad and the cops dropping that bombshell on me. But then the cops just drop that bombshell and they just leave. Man probably could have used some consoling. Like, absolute jerk move by both cops' fault. They said, we're just going to give you some time to process, and walked out. Like, sit with them a while. I think this is a very solid first episode. It's a bit slow at times, but well done, and it sets us up nicely. I gave this one an 8.5.
All right, guys, you got any trivia you want to share from IMDb or anything? I got a few of them I jotted down.
Go for it.
All right, this is the one I was talking about earlier. Evan Peters says they had one rule from Ryan Murphy to follow going into the series, that it would never be told for Dahmer's point of view. As an audience, you're not really sympathizing with him. You're not really getting into his plight. You're more sort of watching it, from the outside, so I can appreciate that. Jeffrey Dahmer was known to play The Exorcist 3 for his victims before killing them. Ken Lerner, who portrayed the real estate developer Joe Zilber that purchased and destroyed Dahmer's personal items, was cast as Dr. Friedman in The Exorcist 1930. Or The Exorcist 3 from 1990. I just butchered that time and date all up. Talking about going back in time. Good night. The 10-episode series had, within a week in September 2022, risen to the number one spot. By its second week, it had cracked the top spot for all-time Netflix viewership as the most-watched series for 21 consecutive days. While it received mixed reviews from critics, audiences have propelled it to the second most viewed Netflix series of all time as of October 2022. And the last one I got is Evan Peters openly admitted that Jeffrey Dahmer was the most difficult role of his career, and that he was still recovering from the disturbance of the role when it came time to promote the series. And yeah, I can give an actor a pass on that one. Like I've seen some other actors talking about how they get into a bad space and all that. It's like, dude, like no offense, Jamie Campbell Bower, I think he's fantastic as Vecna, but playing Vecna and playing Jeffrey Dahmer are way different things. Like, give me a break. I mean, Vecna, come on, be a man.
All right. You guys ready for episode 2?
Yes, sir.
Let's get it. Episode 2, Please Don't Go. Shout out to Mike Posner. We open with a news interview saying the police believe Dahmer has been involved in other homicides, and we see the crime scene before seeing Jeffrey being led into the police station and being booked. Neighbors look on in shock and concern, and we cut back and forth from the crime scene to the police station, and we hear that Jeffrey was a convicted sex offender out on parole. The cops ask Jeffrey if he wants to call anyone, and he says his dad, and waives his right to an attorney and says he'll be honest. They ask why he did it, and we cut to 1966. Young Jeffrey is dropped off at home by a school bus. Inside, a baby is crying at the top of its lungs, enough to make anyone become murderous. I'm kidding. He finds his mom passed out on the bed in another room, and we see her being taken out on a gurney. She's overdosed, and Lionel gets home and calls her out for attention seeking. Later, Lionel and Joyce are arguing loud enough for Jeffrey to hear, and then Lionel leaves. The next day at school, some students give the teacher apples, but old Jeff gives her a jar full of tadpoles like a real lunatic. After class, another student calls Jeffrey weird, and the teacher tells him to be nice and gives the boys Jeffrey's gift. That doesn't sit well with old Jeffrey. He yells at the boy and then follows him home. He lets himself in and grabs the jar of tadpoles and sets them loose in the wild. JK, he poured motor oil in the jar and watched them die. At the Dahmer dinner table, Jeffrey's mom complains about a smell of a dead animal, and the next day, Lionel finds a dead possum under the house. Jeffrey is curious about how it died, and Lionel tells him a heartwarming story of frog abuse from his science class. Later that night, Jeffrey is listening to his parents argue again, and Lionel suggests she take another pill, or better yet, get a lobotomy. Nurturing home life he's got here. Lionel storms out, and Jeffrey sees his mom sitting on the bed. That's the opening set of scenes. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, the way the opening is shot, I think is phenomenal. I can't really explain it. You just have to watch it. They use this slow motion, almost like non-realistic slow motion shots where you hear in the background everything from the television reporter to Jeffrey giving the answers to the police questions. I can't. That was very standout to me. So far, the best shot of the whole series so far. And I just realized, I mean, listen, Dahmer is Evan Peters. Like that's Quicksilver. Like there's no damn way we're keeping him in this cell. That's Magneto's son. I'm sorry. Just hang it up. Mike knows what I'm talking about. On a serious note, though, I'm way, way, way less interested in all the 1966 stuff. That kind of stuff. I mean, it breaks my heart with the fucking it's shitty parents. Like, if my wife was like that and I was leaving town, I mean, you better damn believe that I would be taking my kids with me. And did his dad say in that interview that they didn't get divorced until he was an adult? I mean, Jesus, I can't imagine. So I don't have much anything constructive to say. Just the set of scenes was not my cup of tea at all, and so far I hated all the 1966 stuff.
Um, Again, spend some more time showing us the end result early on. And this is a case where I like the nonlinear storytelling again. I did find it odd that lots of people took away from this series that Dahmer was somehow redeemable because he was honest and upfront once he got caught. Which, yeah, man, you're caught. They found the bodies in your apartment. Like, might as well just tell you the whole thing. I don't need a lawyer present, something along those lines. I'm like, that doesn't make you a good dude, which he has a line in here later that I'll touch on. No, that makes you worse, man. Like, wow, you got caught. Might as well come clean. Fuck you, man. Again, I don't take that away from this series. I think he fucking sucks. Even though we do get into his backstory here. And like Brian, I'm not a massive fan of a lot of this. I think it's interesting, right? I mean, from a morbid curiosity standpoint, interesting learning about the backstory of these people that become famous serial killers, unfortunately, right? I mean, again, there's a reason that true crime is so popular. Yeah, you have the sleuth crime solving part of it, but the other part of it, whether we like it or not, there's a part of us that a lot of us that have a morbid curiosity about why this guy turned out this way, why Ted Kaczynski turned out the way he did, what makes Ted Bundy tick. Like, these are things people want to know from a psychological standpoint. And so diving into his backstory wasn't my favorite thing ever, but there's some good stuff here. I mean, how much do you have to hate your spouse to not be that concerned that she may have killed herself? That was pretty fun. I was like, these are terrible parents right off the bat. Again, I think it's important in a way to humanize him. And I know how that sounds and reads, but if you show him like this as a young kid, I think there's good reason behind it, because it does show you that even this little cute kid that had a really bad can be capable of the absolute worst fucking atrocities of all time. And it's a lesson that everyone should learn at some point, that nobody, is safe from being this awful person unless, you've got a good surrounding, good, work at it, all that stuff. So I actually think it's important. Look, back to the Bates Motel discussion. I mentioned that every serial killer starts out somewhat normal, right? Except this is a real life example of it, where his backstory is a lot more horrible than said Norman Bates was. I will say this. His wife yells at him for not going to pick up the dead animal, or he gets mad that she asked him to do that. I know Joyce kind of sucks, but also I'm not letting dead animals smell in my house for more than 30 seconds. We're going to find out what the root of the smell is, because that is god awful, atrocious. Last thing I will say, and I go back and forth on this. So, if this is a hot take or not great, you can always cut it, Brian. But sorry, I got to be me. I think the show tries to make a point, too much of a point. No, it's not anything that bad, Brian, I promise. But just maybe if everyone vehemently disagrees with me, then maybe we can cut it. I think the show tries to make too much of a point of the dad being really responsible for introducing him to death like this. I'm not saying his parents don't have any portion of blame or any portion of responsibility. Brian, you kind of touched on that. Like, you are, responsible for your children's actions to a point, right? But I don't know how much this dead animal stuff holds that much weight. There's definitely something to it. We see the progression from animal to mannequin to human. Like, I get that. I understand. But I don't know. The dad was doing it with the best of intentions, I think. So even if there is some responsibility there, I don't think it's that much blame to lay at his feet. And I took a lot, I've read a lot about the way the series was internalized, and a lot of people straight up just blamed the parents instead of putting any responsibility on Dahmer. And I think that's fucked up.
Just starting off, I just want to give Evan Peters his flowers. The man gives an exceptional performance as Jeffrey Dahmer, and like I mentioned in our last, in the last episode, this is a role where I can understand why an actor would need to have help on set with his mental health, taking a break after this role to get yourself right, back in a good spot. Lionel is horrible seeing Joyce taken away in an ambulance. Like, damn, you aren't sad at all. Your wife is about to be taken away. Like, very dysfunctional household. This depiction of a young Jeffrey Dahmer in a lot of this show is mostly accurate. The dramatizations, portrayal of Glenda, and artistic liberties are where the show veers off mostly, but this stuff in his childhood is mostly accurate. A kid taking their teacher tadpoles is a huge red flag. Like, if I'm that teacher, I got my eyes on this kid going forward. That's very peculiar, to say the least. Jeff was wild even as a young kid, though. Walking into a stranger's house, that is insane behavior. Like, man, what if they just shoot you? Jeffrey shows more of his sociopathic, psychopathic, I don't know, I always get those wrong for some reason, tendencies, killing the tadpoles with motor oil right beside the water he found them in. That's very disturbing behavior. You could have easily just released those tadpoles back into the water, but he killed them where their home was. That's fascinating. I don't know how to say it right. Jeffrey being fascinated with dead animals is accurate as well. And it's a common theme amongst a lot of serial killers. Ted Bundy, Son of Sam, BTK, Edmund Kemper, just to name a few. And this is the last thing I got, and I don't think this is controversial to say, but I can empathize with a young kid coming from a troubled home, which is common among serial killers as well. But like Dustin mentioned, it does not justify ever future behavior and killing people. It's not. You can sympathize with him in his childhood and his home upbringing, but it never justifies killing people. And I think most rational people could see that point of view.
Yeah, the only time that I would be like, well, maybe I understand is if like he's beaten and raped at home and he kills his parents and stops there. But killing
That's
strangers,
self defense, though, in my eyes.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean
right.
very different.
All right. Here's the next set of scenes. We see Jeffrey riding shotgun as Lionel drives, and Jeffrey spots a dead raccoon. So Lionel loads it up in the trunk. At this point, I'm thinking Lionel should be arrested too. They take it home and do some surgery on the dead animal, and Jeffrey is way too into it. Jeffrey asks his dad if he's going to get a divorce, and Lionel just leaves. We fast forward to young adult Jeffrey, and he's cutting some old P&P loaf even after his shift ended because he likes it. We see that it's now 1981 and he's in Miami. Jeffrey is talking to his dad on the phone, and Lionel says he thinks he misses the army. Jeffrey asks Lionel if he can please come home. After Lionel sits there in silence, we see Jeffrey leaving a Greyhound station and getting in the car with his dad. Lionel lays down some ground rules. He's got to respect his grandma, lay off the booze, and look for a job. After he mows the lawn, we see Jeffrey having dinner with his grandma and watching Three's Company. Good show. She tells him about Barb Novak from church, and I couldn't help but think of another Novak from the Milwaukee area, Marquette legend Steve Novak. Anyway, he's hardly interested, and then we see him at work in another deli, where he's reprimanded for breaking dress code. When he goes to pay for a new dress shirt, he gets distracted by a guy undressing a mannequin, and then hides in a dressing room until the store is closed. What you guys think?
Wow. Look, first of all, god damn, Lionel's just as fucked up as Jeff is. Watching them with the roadkill made me want to puke. So, I guess great effects on that by the effects team there. Michael Lutz and the whole art department. Lucy worked on Bird Box, previously reviewed. Don'tGoOutThere.com. Wait, we did Bird Box, right? We did. Yeah. I think so. Okay. I couldn't really find who played the teenage version of Dahmer. Surely that wasn't Peters too, right? Because if so, holy shit, like they did a fantastic job. Like it sure as hell to me did not look like Evan Peters, but I, for one, at this point, and I may be proven wrong later, but at this point, was glad to see the teenage version of us move past the kid version. Shout out to Nick Fisher, though, on his portrayal of the 1966 version. You know, it's funny if you look at his IMDb, is known for Puppy Place, Puppy Dog Pals, and then you have, boom, Dahmer. So, okay. And while we're on a roll with me having nothing useful to say, let me add to that. I idolize a lot of the 80s. I really do, but shitty TV dinners, watching shitty TV in poorly lit rooms is not one of those things.
Hang on.
Like, I was not dating. I was as old as 7 in the 80s, and thankfully I don't remember that if it was a part of my life any, but however, I will say buying a dress shirt for only $13, that is fire. So this episode is...
We're not just going to gloss over you saying that Three's Company wasn't a good show. Come and knock on our door,
What is wrong
brother.
with you?
Come and knock on our door.
Come and knock on our door.
Hey, they had some awesome
And the
theme
kisses
songs, so
are
I'll just leave it at that. Great theme
Three's
songs.
Company
I love that
too.
That's a good show.
Fuck
Bet
yeah,
you did.
man. Are you
Bet
kidding?
you did.
Whoa,
Damn
Bet you
Don
did.
Knotts buses in the room. Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
I've literally never watched Three's Company, so I have no idea.
What?
Oh.
That was the number one show in the country when you were in high school.
Well, somebody else go before I go off like Mike being pissed about Bates Motel.
It wasn't just Base Motel, damn it. It's other things too. All this realism. Anyways, great song that Lionel has playing here, by the way. Shout out to him. But again, this, picking up the dead animal, a little odd for sure, right? Again, I understand the people that put some blame on Lionel. I kind of touched on it. I'll try to not just harp on it, but I mean, I don't necessarily think it's his fault. It's just like the only thing I would say here is after we see this kind of interest in death, especially ripping animals apart, maybe we put a pause. I know that's like the only thing you guys have bonded over, but like, oh well, find something else to bond over. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, just not good. But anyway, I will say, working at a deli with a meat slicer like this is all okay. I'm sure some jokes are coming in, but just please let me talk about sandwiches, okay? Working at a deli with a really top grade meat slicer like this is always, I've always wanted to run a meat slicer like that. Never got to do that. Always wanted to do that because I like good cold cuts myself. I will say 1980s Miami. My man was hanging out with Don Johnson, baby. Hell yeah. By the way, that's a Miami Vice reference, Nico. Don't know if you know that.
Yes, I'm aware.
Okay. So, well, hey, man, I'm just saying. Just throwing that out there. Um, sorry. He begs to come home and he's crying and he's pleading. His dad lets him come home. And then the first thing he says to him, really, after agreeing to all of his rules, he goes, "Oh, look, roadkill." Oh, shit. He's doomed. He's screwed. He's got no shot. This poor grandma, man, she seems so sweet. This poor woman. I mean, she just seems like the nicest old lady. And, feel so bad for her, especially later in the series. I got to be honest. I'm a rebel. I'm not a big fan of dress codes and having to adhere to them. Uniforms, dress codes, none of that. I feel like you should dress whatever makes you feel good. This guy getting mad at Dahmer for wearing a T-shirt in the back where no one can see you, where we're just handling the meat. Pause. No, I'll never understand it. How does that work? Like, how does that affect my work efficiency? It doesn't, which is honestly why I like the current job I have. And shout out to TQL, who would just let you kind of wear fucking not anything you wanted, but it was pretty close, man.
It's not about affecting your performance. It's about having the same rules as everyone else and being a team player.
I'm not saying he shouldn't have followed the rules. I'm just saying the rules suck. Those are two different
I've had
topics.
to have that exact conversation with employees when I was in management. That's why I said that.
Hey, buddy, I'm with you. If we have rules, you got to follow them. But the rules can still suck, and I think that one sucked. Last thing I have, ain't no way you could get away with hiding like that in a dressing room now. Now, again, malls are empty, and so are big box department stores. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you could, but I don't know. I worked at a mall for a little while there at the GNC, and there was like 4 security guards that all they did was walk around and use the inside of the mall as a walking lap track. So I don't think you could get away with anything.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Mike, I think it's cool that Lionel is bonding with his son, but taxidermy, studying organs of dead animals, that's pretty strange. I mean, I know he's a chemist, but I'd still be watching my son like a hawk for any odd behavior. Jeff must have liked his job for real. I'm clocking out the earliest I can. There ain't no way I'm staying 20 minutes late to keep working. The hell with all that. And like you guys have mentioned, good to see Richard Jenkins, who is making his, what I believe, 3rd appearance on our show. This, Bone Tomahawk, and Cabin in the Woods. Jeff just did, all right, this is just on a lighter note. Jeff just did one of the most American things I've ever seen, cutting grass with a manual push mower and down in a Bud Heavy. America. Hell yeah.
Wonderful. And you also never cut another man's grass. Never.
I cut my grass.
That's right.
Marty, he should have knew the signs were there. But anywho, wonderful facial acting by Peters, reacting to Grandma saying he should meet the nice Christian girl at church. That man was repulsed hearing all of it. The girl part, the Christian part. Nah, he said, I'm good. Off topic, kind of, but it ticks me off when a job doesn't provide you with a uniform they require. I shouldn't have to go buy a dress shirt to work at your butcher shop. Like, if you want me to wear it, you give me the damn shirt. But anywho, last thing I got, pretty wild that this store didn't check all the dressing rooms to make sure they're empty before closing. Like, what are they doing? Like, give me a break.
This is funny, like, hearing y'all talk about dress code, because literally every job I've ever had is either in retail as a manager at Finish Line for like 8.5 years, and then office setting where it's business casual. And they're like, yeah, we want you to wear a shirt and tie, but we're not going to give you a clothes stipend or anything. So I hear you.
Yeah.
No. When I worked at a bank, yeah, I had to provide my own stuff. But now, when I work for the city, like they provide me pants, shirt, boots, everything.
Hey man,
Yeah, I hear you.
My favorite part is once I started to collect some TQL T-shirts, just wore them because you were allowed. You're like, as long as it says TQL on it, they didn't care. Those like shoodies and stuff, man. Or at least our office was like, yep, as long as you were in some kind of TQL shirt or one with a collar, then you were good. But
yeah, my boss had to tell me at TQL every other day to not wear a hat in the building. But anyway.
Hell, our whole office wore hats.
Well, we did too. We'll talk
yeah.
about that later. All right, next set of scenes. When the coast is clear, Jeffrey exits the dressing room and swipes a trash bag from a trash can. He undresses the mannequin and takes it with him in the trash bag like the world's worst Grinch. At home, he takes his britches off and puts the mannequin on the bed and cuddles up next to it while caressing it. The next day, he asks his grandma to leave the sheets outside his door so he can make his own bed. So she becomes curious and opens his door. where she finds the mannequin covered up in his bed, and we cut to 1991 Jeffrey looking at a dead man on his bed. Pretty cool scene, or shot. Later at night, we see Jeffrey walking up to a liquor store where he sees a group of teens outside whose fake IDs didn't work. He buys them alcohol and tells one of them to come back to his place to party. As the two walk off, we see a missing persons poster on a light pole, presumably one of his victims. At Jeffrey's apartment, he gives the young fella a drink and finds out he's really 14 years old. Jeffrey licks his lips like a real freak and tells the boy he won't tell anyone. We find out Jeffrey knew the boy's brother. Jeffrey was arrested for what he did to him. Jeffrey asked why he came, and the boy said he needed the money that he was promised. Jeffrey says the boy's brother lied to the cops, and he would have given him some money too. All he wants is to take some pictures. The boy agrees, but wants the money up front. Jeffrey gives him $23 and says he'll give the rest after the photo session. The boy doesn't like the wine Jeffrey bought him, so Jeffrey says, let's just chug and get to it. After that, the boy lays down all groggy-like, and Jeffrey snaps a photo. When the boy wakes up, Jeffrey says he wants to try something fun, and the boy tries to get out of bed but is too groggy and trips over the dead body from earlier. Jeffrey goes into the kitchen and gets a power drill and says he's going to make the boy his zombie. He wants to give him a lobotomy so the boy will like being there with him and he can live with him. The screen goes blurry as if it's from the boy's perspective, and we hear a drill whirring, and the next set of scenes is the end.
Yeah. All right, so I don't even know what to say about the start of this, man. Like, in the moment, I said, "What the fuck is Jeff doing? Not taking the suit and only taking the mannequin? I mean, goddamn, get that suit." In the '80s, that was probably like $15 suit or something. Well, it's super nice. But then I went, "What the fuck am I watching with this mannequin, man?" Like, that was just me in the moment. Crazy transition too, though, from the grandma pulling down the covers to what I was originally assuming was his first victim, but obviously that was wrong. Is that Curtis Straughter here in the bed, dead before he picks up that 14-year-old Konarak, right? Is that right? I don't know. I mean, I'm learning this stuff as I go, so the whole thing's just crazy.
Anyway, all right. So this mannequin shit is making me uncomfortable, man. And I'm uncomfortable because mannequins give me uncanny valley, and I hate that feeling, that almost human, not human. And especially the way they use it here is, super uncomfortable. I mean, harmless, right? If it were somebody that we didn't know ended up being in a world infamous serial killer, but it is, and we know what he ends up doing later. So this mannequin scene is incredibly creepy. I will say, at least Grandma opened up to a fake person, not a real one here, like Jeffrey did. Yikes, man. That was a cool transition shot. I agree with what Dustin said. Thought it was cool. Here's something of a fun fact, not so fun fact, actually, that a lot of people forget. Not only was Jeffrey Dahmer a murderer and a rapist and, what's the word I'm looking for when you like dead bodies? I can't remember. Necrophiliac. He's also a pedophile. Just one of the worst people of all time, man. Just one of the worst, most disgusting people ever to live. I will say, I don't know what he was on, man. I could never drink a beer in the middle of class and retain or do anything. I mean, especially back then. I mean, I was a fucking idiot drunk. I would have never been able to do that. I love how Jeff hits us with the line. I mentioned it earlier. When he's kind of ranting about being labeled a bad guy, dude, you are a bad guy. You're a fucking asshole. And I hate this victim stuff. Again, bad backstory. We can empathize, sympathize with that part, but it doesn't excuse this disgusting fucking behavior that he has on display right now. Ask the boy how old he is, says 14. Oh, that's fine. Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Like, just one of the, it's gross, man. I don't know how you could walk away with this show saying that it glorifies Dahmer. Not in my eyes. I mean, I will say, last thing, I'm uncomfortable here because of the age of this fella. Just a really skin crawling set of scenes here. He mentions that his contact, are his contacts scary? Fucking hell, Jeff. I don't think out of everything going on in this room that this young man is scared of your contacts. Fuck off, man.
Yeah, hiding in a dressing room to steal a mannequin, that's some wild behavior as well. Good review talk, but Jesus, Jeffrey. Jeff got out too easy, assumingly. This store doesn't check dressing rooms, doesn't have cameras or an alarm system. What is this place doing? If we saw a man caressing and fondling a mannequin in a movie we review, we'd unleash on how bizarre it is. But it's very disturbing to know this is factual with Jeffrey Dahmer. Very, very strange. Another time jump, which is a little frustrating. God, I know Dustin's going to laugh at that. Bounce between all the more well-known moments of his life. I didn't care for the transition from Grandma pulling the sheet up to seeing Jeff looking at the black man's corpse. I don't know. I didn't care for that personally. This young man we meet here is Conorak Synthasumphone. Sorry, that's a difficult last name to say. He's only 14 years old, and it disgusts me what happens to him and the lack of help given to him from the Milwaukee Police Department. It's horrific that Dahmer had harmed Conorak and his brother as well. Heartbreaking to know Conorak was willing to work for Jeffrey despite the horrible things he's done to his brother because he needed money for his family. That's one of the things, I'm not trying to, well, actually, Dustin, but just to not reiterate, but just to justify something you said in the first episode is, you smelled how nasty the place is. I'm going to leave. A lot of people are really desperate for money, and $50, $100, it's a lot of money. They're going to suffer through it, I guess. Tough scene to watch here with Dahmer and Conorak knowing this actually happened to a 14-year-old boy. And, I know you touched on, this stare or the contacts, Mike, but I thought it was a haunting stare by Peters as Conorak wakes up being drugged. Like, I noticed his eyes and the way they look. I can't compliment Evan enough for his portrayal. This is a horrifyingly good performance. Dahmer had a huge problem with control and people leaving him. And this lobotomy experiment is just terrifying. And it's really scary knowing that he did this to several human beings.
Yeah, and as to what I said earlier about the smell, what you touched on there, I didn't mean like that's not realistic or there's no way. I'm saying me. I don't care how hard up for cash I was. If I walked in a place and it smells like that, no, I'm out.
I feel you.
But anyway, here's the ending. The boy wakes up. What's his name? Conorak? I don't want to keep calling him the boy.
Conorak.
Sorry. I apologize for that. Conorak wakes up, still groggy, and we get some cool blurry POV shots as he tries to exit the apartment. In the hallway, two women see him and ask what he's doing with no clothes on, but he can't speak. Jeffrey returns home and sees his neighbors talking to cops out front. Jeffrey tells them that the boy is his boyfriend, Conorak's his boyfriend. He says that Conorak is just drunk and he wants to take him back inside. He tells the cop that Conorak is 19 and that he lost his ID. The cops go along with it, much to the dismay of the neighbors. And when they get to Jeffrey's apartment, the cop asks if he has anything weird in there. The cops ask about the smell, and Jeff gives his standard, "My meat went bad," answer. He offers to show the cops the pictures to prove that Conorak is his boyfriend, but they don't want to see that. They look around a little, but not much, and they leave. The neighbor sees the cops leave, and we hear "Please Don't Go" by Casey and the Sunshine Band play from Jeff's apartment, and we hear the drill whirring again. Then, after all that, we get audio from an actual call that occurred 5/27/91 at 2:25 a.m. It was the neighbor, Mrs. Cleveland, talking to one of the cops who was there. She asks what happened, and the cops tell her it was just a drunk boyfriend situation. The cop tells her that the boy was an adult and it's taken care of, and that's that. The last thing I wanted to mention was that this episode was directed by Clement Virgo. He directed 2 episodes of this miniseries, this one in episode 3, and he also directed 2 episodes of season 1 of The Wire. And I'll never pass up an opportunity to shout out The Wire. Elite television.
Hell yeah. Goat show.
Yeah, I said in the first episode that I'm astonished that he got away with it as long as he did because he's pretty fucking terrible at this. But I'm seeing how fucking inept these goddamn cops are. And I'm also seeing how it kind of connected to where he got caught and tried the same quote where he said gay stuff line with those cops later on and got away with it here. But also, these cops looked in the bedroom and we just saw the blood stain on the bed. Like, how did they not fucking see that at all? The police ineptitude is unreal, and it playing the real recorded call from that night, I thought was a super powerful way to end the episode. Crazy, but honestly, the series has me locked in after 2 episodes.
I'll tell you what's not goat are these fucking cops. Are you fucking kidding me, man? This
Terrible.
was sorry. Maybe that was distasteful, but I'm being totally honest. I mean, this was so infuriating, so frustrating to rewatch again. I mean, how did they not take this guy away forever off of this? It is clear as day that this young man is a child. I don't understand. That is clear as day. You have 4 people against his 1. I'm assuming, and just knowing the history of Milwaukee, I'm going to assume they didn't believe these people because they were in a poor neighborhood and they were black. And Dahmer was white, even though he lived in the exact same damn neighborhood that they did. But just throwing that out there. These cops are worse. Sorry, dark humor, but these cops are worse than the cops from Halloween 5, man. You might as well put the clown music behind these sorry fuckers because this is just atrocious and sad because, like you mentioned in your last set of scenes, Nico, this happened to a real boy. Like, this happened to a real person. This is just awful. I mean, it's his reaction to being searched, it's like, yeah, you mind if we just take a look around? His reaction, his face off of that alone should have been enough to at least go back to the station and try to get a warrant or something. Like, you have to act on your impulses a little bit as a cop, right? I mean, you can't. It's just so frustrating, man. All I could type for this next line is "fuck" in all caps. Again, his upbringing is responsible for how he ended up being, or not responsible, partly responsible for how he ended up being. But so is the system that enabled him to keep getting away with this stuff. They mentioned what he ended up doing to this man's brother. Here he is, free as a bird, doing it again, right? I mean, again, and being able to get away with this in front of cops, in front of other people, like they're boo things. The kid is, this system enabled them. They didn't look out for the people that they should have been looking out for. It's fucked up, man. Again, would not be able to get past that smell as a cop. Last thing, this is a haunting phone call. Like, I love that they used this. Obviously, I didn't use the real audio, but they used, Niecy Nash recording these lines, and I thought it was great. Added a lot of great effect that they let you know this was a real phone call that a concerned citizen put in, and nobody did anything. I thought that was a really nice way to end. Not nice, but really good way to end that episode.
Don't feel bad for apologizing about your thoughts on the police because they were terrible, and I'm going to be even worse. This is so beyond frustrating to see. The police completely fail their job not being proactive trying to protect Conorak. How the police don't see a drill hole in his head and just believe Jeffrey's story is pathetic. And like you mentioned in Murder in America, I actually re-listened to their 2-episode podcast on Jeffrey Dahmer. They also reported that he was bleeding from his anus as well. So I don't know how they just let Jeffrey take this kid back upstairs. Crime reporter Ann Schwartz, who broke the Dahmer case, criticized some depictions in this episode. Glenda Cleveland's portrayal not being accurate and the portrayal of the police officers being overly racist and homophobic is debated, but she did confirm they were completely negligent. The corpse of Tony Hughes being on the bed in the other room is accurate, and it's unbelievable they did such a poor job of searching that apartment. 4 more victims happen after Conorak, and it falls on the shoulders of those 2 officers, Balkerzak and Gabrish. Hearing the actual phone call is very frustrating as well. How the cops just bought the pictures as being enough evidence they were a couple, and lying they verified Conorak's age. The cops were also heard on radio after this, joking they needed to shower because they were in a gay man's house. Terrible police officers and work. And I'm just going to read a trivia that will make you despise them even more. It's shown throughout the show that the police officers that released 14-year-old Conorak back into the care of Jeffrey Dahmer at his apartment were suspended and subsequently reinstated. But it doesn't cover that John Balkerzak, one of the officers in question, wasn't just supported by his union, but would be elected as a union president of the Milwaukee Police Association in 2005. So he got awarded as well, which is fucking pathetic.
I mean, it's basically, it goes to show 2 things. Number one, they just lumped everyone who lives in that place the same to a certain extent. Like they look down on Jeffrey, not as much as the black neighbors, but they do look down on him. They don't want to be there, but also the homophobia. They're like, these are some gay pictures. Yeah. Let's just get out of here.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's exactly what it was. And I touched on that more 100%. In the episode 3 when the one you reviewed or did scene by scene on.
Yeah. All right, I got just one more thing here. My closing thoughts. I like that this episode gives us more of a look into Jeffrey's backstory, but also shows us more of what he was doing in 1991. I thought that was very effective. People don't just become monsters overnight. It's either a series of events that turn them into a monster or the signs were there all along. And for Dahmer, it appears to be both. And I like the inclusion of that actual call at the end. I mean, just it further drives home how pathetic of a job those cops did. I gave this episode a 9. I liked it better than the first.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it was a good. I mean, it was a well-made episode. I don't want to say it was a good episode because I mean, it's
Well,
none of this shit's good.
Is any of these?
Yeah, I think we all know what you mean.
I struggle with that too. Are any of these good episodes? Like they are in terms of television, right? Like being, the whole point of watching something is to be entertained.
Good.
Still a bad word, but like you know what I mean. And the subject matter is hard to ever be good.
Yeah, good quality.
Yes.
Good dramatizations. Horrible story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, perfectly said. We appreciate y'all tuning in. This has been the first episodes of Dahmer, something unlike we've done before. So I think we did a good job of it. We appreciate y'all tuning in, and we will be back next week with episodes 3 and 4.
And instead of Jason X, fuck Jeffrey Dahmer.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, take care of yourself.
Just want to remind everybody